Welcome to Sci-Fi Verse. Make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on new videos, and enjoy the listening. The sleek, arrow-shaped spacecraft glided through the thick clouds above Earth, its metallic hull gleaming with reflections of the setting sun. Inside the cockpit, Klyr's fingers danced across the controls with practiced precision. Her violet eyes, swirling with shades of lavender and indigo, remained fixed on the holographic mission briefing projected in front of her. Target designation: human subject identified as a Level 3 threat. Capture and retrieve for interrogation. The briefing displayed in bold text. The hologram flickered, revealing the image of a young man with dark, unruly hair and sharp green eyes. His expression was a blend of confidence and melancholy, as if carrying a burden he couldn't shake. Klyr's orders were clear: capture the human, deliver him to her commander, and return for debriefing. Klyr was a high-ranking soldier from Otheria, a race renowned for their disciplined combat strategies and superior technology. She was honed for missions like these, efficient and emotionless. Yet, as she studied the human's face, a strange curiosity tugged at her thoughts. Something in his eyes unsettled her, an intensity that whispered of hidden depths. No distractions, she reminded herself, forcing her attention back to the mission. Humans were notoriously chaotic, their behavior dictated by volatile emotions, a weakness her people exploited. Klyr initiated the descent, her ship's cloaking system activating as she neared a secluded forest near the target's location. Part 2: The Encounter. Daniel Callahan wandered through the shadowy forest, his boots crunching over fallen leaves. The night was damp, a cold mist hanging between the trees like ghostly tendrils. For weeks he'd been drawn to this forest by inexplicable dreams, images of alien landscapes, haunting whispers in a language he couldn't comprehend. "Maybe I really am losing it," he muttered to himself, running a hand through his tangled hair. Or maybe those conspiracy nuts were right. Daniel had no clear idea what he was looking for out here, only that a sense of urgency gnawed at him. Someone was out there, watching him. He could feel it. The eerie silence was broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves in the wind. Then, as if on cue, a chill raced down his spine. His senses sharpened, every instinct telling him he wasn't alone. "Enough of this," Daniel muttered, ready to turn back. But before he could move, a soft rustling caught his attention. He froze, eyes scanning the darkness. A shadow separated itself from the trees, moving with a fluid grace that sent his heart racing. Klyr emerged from the darkness, her silver skin reflecting the faint moonlight. Her violet eyes, cold and calculating, locked onto him with unblinking focus. Daniel tensed, his hand inching toward the knife concealed in his pocket. "Who the hell are you?" Daniel demanded, his voice laced with tension. He took a cautious step back, every muscle in his body coiled to strike or flee. Klyr tilted her head slightly, analyzing him like a predator sizing up its prey. Her features were strikingly alien, sharp, elegant lines that made her look both beautiful and otherworldly. "I am Klyr of Otheria," she said smoothly, her voice melodic but edged with steel. "You are Daniel Callahan. You will come with me." Daniel blinked, caught off guard by the directness. "I'm not going anywhere with you, lady." Klyr's eyes narrowed. She had expected resistance. Humans were stubborn by nature. She activated a device on her wrist, and a shimmering blue energy field enveloped her. "Do not resist. I've been ordered to capture you, but I prefer to do it without unnecessary injury." Daniel's pulse quickened. This wasn't a prank or some elaborate scam, this was real. "Capture me? For what? What do you even want?" Klyr stepped closer, her posture radiating controlled aggression. "Your cooperation is irrelevant. You will come with me one way or another." Daniel's mind raced. He knew these woods better than anyone, and if he could just create enough distance between them, he might lose her. But before he could make a move, Klyr lunged forward with a speed that left him reeling. She was suddenly in front of him, her hand clamping around his arm like a steel vise. "What are you?" Daniel gasped, struggling to wrench himself free. "Efficient," Klyr replied, her tone icy. "Now hold still." But before she could trigger the teleportation device, a loud crack echoed through the trees as a branch snapped under the weight of a startled animal. The sudden noise drew Klyr's attention for a fraction of a second, and Daniel seized the opportunity. Twisting sharply, he drove his fist into her jaw, sending her stumbling back. She barely registered the pain, more surprised than hurt, but it was enough for Daniel. He bolted into the darkness. Klyr hissed in frustration, her expression hardening. This mission was not going as planned. She activated her tracking visor, her vision adjusting to pick up the faint heat signatures through the dense foliage. There his trail was clear. With determined precision, she sprinted after him, her movements swift and relentless. But Daniel was quick and knew the terrain intimately. He led her on a chaotic chase, doubling back, climbing rocky inclines, even diving into a shallow stream to mask his scent. Yet no matter how many tricks he used, Klyr remained on his tail, her enhanced senses compensating for every maneuver. Finally, they emerged into a small clearing surrounded by towering trees. Daniel's chest heaved with exertion as he turned to face her. "All right," he said breathlessly. "You want me? Come and get me." Klyr's eyes blazed with determination. "You're only making this harder for yourself, human." "I'm stubborn like that," Daniel shot back, raising his fists. The fight that followed was brief but fierce. Daniel fought with the desperate energy of someone with nothing to lose, every punch and kick calculated for maximum impact. But Klyr was a trained warrior, faster, stronger, and far more skilled. Within moments, she had him pinned to the ground, her knee pressing into his chest. "This is over," Klyr said coldly, her voice laced with finality. Daniel glared up at her, defiance burning in his eyes. "Then finish it. Do whatever you came here to do." Klyr hesitated, her grip loosening slightly. There was something in his gaze that caught her off guard, a refusal to surrender even when beaten. It was the same intensity she'd seen in his hologram, a mix of fear, determination, and something she couldn't quite name. For a fleeting moment, doubt crept into her mind. "This isn't what I expected," she murmured, almost to herself. Daniel's brow furrowed. "What's that supposed to mean?" Klyr blinked, realizing she'd spoken aloud. It means her voice trailed off as conflicting thoughts raced through her mind. Her mission was clear, her orders absolute. But standing here with this human staring defiantly up at her, she felt her resolve waver. He wasn't the mindless threat she'd been led to believe. He was intelligent, resourceful, and driven by a need to survive. "I was sent to capture you," she said quietly, her voice softened by a rare uncertainty. "But something doesn't add up. Why would my superiors see you as a threat?" Daniel let out a bitter laugh. "I have no idea. I'm just a guy trying to hold on to what's left of his sanity. If you're looking for some world-ending villain, you've got the wrong person." Klyr scrutinized him, her confusion deepening. Her training allowed her to detect lies, and everything about him screamed sincerity. But if he was telling the truth, why had her people targeted him? Could there be more to this mission than she'd been told? She released him and rose to her feet, offering a hand to help him up. Daniel eyed her with suspicion but finally took it. "You're letting me go?" he asked, his voice edged with disbelief. "For now," Klyr replied, her tone guarded. "Something is wrong with this mission, and I intend to find out what." Daniel rubbed his shoulder, still aching from the fight. "So what now? You keep chasing me until you figure it out." Klyr shook her head. "No, I think we can both agree that won't get us anywhere. You want answers, and so do I. It's time we stop fighting and start working together." Daniel blinked in surprise. "You're serious? You want me to help you?" "It's in both our interests," Klyr said, crossing her arms. "You know more about this world than I do, and I have access to technology and information you don't. If we work together, we might uncover the truth faster." "And when we do," Daniel asked cautiously, "you take me back to your ship and drag me off to wherever you came from." Klyr hesitated, her gaze conflicted. "If I discover you're innocent, I won't complete the mission. I'll find another way to protect you." Daniel studied her face, searching for any sign of deception. But despite his doubts, he sensed she was being sincere. He couldn't fully trust her, how could he? But he didn't see any other viable options. Whoever sent her would likely send others if she failed, and he couldn't keep running forever. "Fine," Daniel said at last, running a hand through his hair. "I'll work with you. But on one condition." Klyr arched an eyebrow. "And what's that?" "No more trying to knock me out or drag me around like some prisoner. If we're doing this, it's as equals." Klyr nodded slowly. "Agreed. But remember, if you betray me, I won't hesitate to defend myself." "Same goes for you, alien." They stared at each other in tense silence, both still wary but now sharing a fragile understanding. Whatever was happening, they were in it together. Part 3: An Uneasy Alliance. The next few days were a whirlwind of cautious collaboration. Daniel led Klyr to a hidden safe house, a small, weathered cabin deep in the woods, where he often laid low. It was off the grid, equipped with essentials, and more importantly, out of sight. Klyr wasted no time integrating her advanced tech into the cabin's systems, transforming it into a makeshift command center. Holographic displays flickered to life, showing readouts and data streams as they worked to piece together the puzzle. As they planned their next steps, the initial tension between them began to ease. Conversations that started off purely tactical slowly became more personal. They began to learn more about each other's cultures and values, each gaining insight into the other's perspective. One evening, as they sat near a flickering fire, reviewing data on a holographic screen, Daniel couldn't resist asking, "So, what's life like on Etheria?" "All about duty and no fun." Klyr's gaze flicked to him, her expression thoughtful. "Our society values efficiency and purpose. Every citizen is trained to serve the greater good from an early age. Emotions are seen as distractions." Daniel chuckled dryly. "Sounds like a blast." Klyr tilted her head, intrigued. "You value amusement." "Yeah," Daniel said, leaning back with a grin. "Life's hard enough without sucking all the joy out of it. Sometimes you just need to laugh, unwind, have a drink, you know? It's what keeps people going." Klyr pondered this. The concept of fun had always been abstract to her, frivolity unworthy of serious attention. But watching Daniel's relaxed demeanor made her reconsider. "You humans are strange," she said with a faint smile. "And you're all work and no play," Daniel shot back with a teasing grin. Despite their differences, Klyr found herself growing more at ease around him. He was resourceful, quick-witted, and his determination to survive was admirable. More than that, she was beginning to see the world through his eyes, the value of freedom, individuality, and the connections humans forged. It was a perspective that challenged everything she'd been taught. Meanwhile, Daniel found himself increasingly impressed by Klyr's discipline and tactical mind. Beneath her icy exterior was someone driven by duty and honor, yet conflicted by doubts she didn't show easily. He still kept his guard up, but he couldn't deny a growing respect for her. Their investigation soon uncovered a disturbing truth. The dreams that had drawn Daniel to the forest were linked to a buried signal, one that had been dormant for years but had recently reactivated. The signal was of alien origin, tied to a hidden Etherian outpost that both sides of an old interstellar conflict had forgotten. "Looks like someone's trying to clean up loose ends," Daniel said grimly as they pored over the data. "Or they're trying to hide something even more dangerous," Klyr added, her tone edged with tension. "We need to find that outpost before they do." Part 4, Into the Depths. At dawn the next day, they set out to follow the faint signal deeper into the wilderness. The journey was fraught with challenges: rugged terrain, shifting weather, and the constant feeling of being watched. But Klyr's advanced tracking equipment, combined with Daniel's knowledge of the forest, allowed them to navigate the dangers. As they ventured deeper, the atmosphere grew thicker with tension. They discovered remnants of alien technology, overgrown ruins half buried in the earth, long-abandoned machines emitting faint hums. It was clear they were close. Finally, they reached the entrance to an underground facility concealed beneath layers of rock and vegetation. The massive door was reinforced with metal far more advanced than anything humans could create. Klyr scanned it, her expression darkening as she reviewed the results. "This facility hasn't been accessed in decades," she murmured. "But someone reactivated it recently." Daniel tightened his grip on his weapon. "Whoever did, they're not going to be happy to see us." Klyr's eyes flashed with determination. "Let's find out." They hacked into the door's control panel, and with a low rumble, it creaked open. A gust of stale air rushed out, carrying the faint scent of ozone. Exchanging tense glances, they stepped inside, weapons at the ready. The interior was a labyrinth of dark corridors and dormant consoles covered in layers of dust. But as they moved deeper, signs of recent activity emerged: footprints in the dust, flickering lights, and the unmistakable hum of power being rerouted. "Someone's been busy," Daniel whispered, unease creeping into his voice. Klyr nodded, her expression sharp. "Stay close. We're not alone." As they rounded a corner, they suddenly found themselves face to face with a group of armed soldiers, Etherian soldiers clad in dark armor bearing the insignia of a faction Klyr recognized instantly. Her heart skipped a beat as she processed what this meant. "They're from the Separatist faction," she hissed, raising her weapon. "Traitors operating outside our government's control." Before Daniel could react, the soldiers opened fire and chaos erupted. Klyr moved with lethal efficiency, deflecting energy blasts with her shield while returning fire with pinpoint accuracy. Daniel ducked behind cover, picking off targets when he could, but it was clear they were outnumbered and outgunned. "They're not here to talk," Daniel shouted over the noise. "Then we take them down," Klyr snapped back, her voice hard as steel. The battle raged on, but the odds grew worse. Just when it seemed they would be overwhelmed, a deafening explosion rocked the facility. The ceiling caved in, separating them from their attackers and plunging the corridor into darkness. "Klyr," Daniel called out, panic rising in his voice as he searched through the dust and rubble. "I'm here," she responded, emerging from the debris, bruised but alive. "We need to keep moving before reinforcements arrive." Daniel nodded, helping her to her feet. "We're close, but I've got a bad feeling about what we're going to find." "They're from the Separatist faction," Klyr hissed, her voice taut with anger. Her eyes narrowed as she recognized the insignia on their dark armor traitors who had broken away from the Otherian command, intent on destabilizing the galaxy. "They're operating outside our government's control. We're walking into a nest of vipers." Before Daniel could ask more, the soldiers sprang into action. A barrage of energy blasts lit up the corridor, turning it into a battleground of flickering shadows and flashing lights. Klyr moved like a force of nature, her reflexes sharp as she deflected the attacks with her shield, firing back with deadly precision. Daniel ducked behind cover, squeezing off shots when he had a clear line of fire, but it was quickly evident they were outgunned. "They aren't here to negotiate," Daniel shouted over the chaos. "Then we don't give them a chance." Klyr's voice was cold, determined. "We take them out before they pin us down." The firefight intensified. Klyr's movements were fluid and exact, each strike calculated to break the enemy's formation, but the sheer number of soldiers threatened to overwhelm them. The walls shook as more reinforcements poured in. Just when it seemed they were cornered, a deafening explosion tore through the ceiling, sending rubble crashing down between them and their attackers. "Klyr," Daniel called out, his voice tinged with desperation as dust choked the air. Here came her response from across the debris-strewn corridor. She emerged from the smoke, bruised but alive. Blood trickled down her temple, but her eyes blazed with resolve. "We need to move. Reinforcements are coming." Daniel rushed to her side and helped her to her feet. He could see the weariness in her gaze, but also the fire that drove her forward. "We're getting closer," he muttered, "but I've got a bad feeling about what we'll find." Without another word, they pushed deeper into the facility. The corridors grew narrower, the walls pulsing with dim, erratic lights. It felt like the heart of a dying beast alive but decaying. Each step forward heightened the tension, shadows flickering with hidden threats, and the only sound was the low, ominous hum of machinery deep below. Daniel's grip tightened on his weapon. "I don't like this. It's like we're walking into a setup." "I don't either," Klyr whispered back. Her voice was low, almost haunted. "But whatever's down here holds the key to why they want you. We can't turn back now." The air grew colder as they descended, the twisting passages disorienting in their alien design. The architecture was nothing like the brutal efficiency of Otheria. There was something ancient and eerily familiar about it, as though Daniel had glimpsed it in forgotten dreams. Finally, they reached a vast chamber, its ceiling vanishing into darkness above. Massive pillars lined the room, glowing faintly with an unsettling bioluminescence. At the center stood a raised platform surrounded by consoles, all linked to a towering cylindrical device that thrummed with dark energy. "What is that?" Daniel breathed, both awe and dread mixing in his voice. Klyr's expression hardened as she scanned the device with her wrist console. "A quantum resonator. It amplifies and transmits signals across dimensions. But this one's been altered. It's tuned specifically to interface with human neural patterns. It's the source of the dreams that have been drawing you here." Daniel's stomach churned. "So they've been messing with my head? Luring me like bait?" "Yes," Klyr confirmed, her voice laced with anger. "But I still don't understand why you're so crucial to them." Before they could delve further, the chamber was suddenly flooded with a harsh blue light. The entrance behind them slammed shut with a metallic clang, trapping them inside. From the shadows, figures emerged, more Otherian soldiers, their armor gleaming under the cold lights. But it was the tall figure at the front that made Klyr's blood run cold. Stepping forward with predatory grace was Commander Vyrek, his sharp features framed by cold, calculating eyes. His silver skin shimmered faintly as he surveyed them with a smug smile. The insignia on his pristine uniform marked him as a leader of the separatists. He radiated cruelty and intelligence in equal measure. "So you finally arrived," Klyr Virek drawled, his voice dripping with mockery. "I knew you couldn't resist poking your nose where it doesn't belong. Still clinging to the Council's weak ideals, I see." Klyr's grip tightened on her weapon. "Virek, I should have known you'd be behind this treachery." Virek's smile widened. "Always so self-righteous. But you're too late. The pieces are already in place." His gaze shifted to Daniel, his eyes gleaming with twisted amusement. "You've brought him to me just as I intended." Klyr moved between Virek and Daniel, her posture defensive. "What's your game, Virek? Why target this human?" Virek's expression sharpened with predatory delight. "You really don't know. I'm almost disappointed. This human is more than just another primitive. He's the key to unlocking a power our people have sought for centuries, a power hidden in the bloodline of certain humans, tied to civilizations long forgotten." Daniel's face tightened. "I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm just an ordinary guy, nothing special." Virek's eyes gleamed with dark intent. "Ordinary? Hardly. You're a descendant of a lineage that carries the potential to access forbidden technology that could reshape the galaxy." Klyr's mind raced as she processed Virek's words. Could it be true? Legends spoke of lost bloodlines, ancient humans who once wielded powers that rivaled the Otherians. Those stories were dismissed as myths. But now, with everything she'd seen... "You're lying," Daniel said, his voice defiant despite the fear creeping into his eyes. "I don't care about your conspiracy theories. I'm not helping you with anything." Virek's smile turned cold. "You don't have a choice, human. Once the resonator is fully activated, your mind will be ours to command." Klyr raised her weapon, her voice low and deadly. "You won't use him as your pawn, Virek. I'll stop you." Virek's expression darkened, amusement fading. "You've always been so naive, Klyr. Honor and duty, empty words that won't save you now." With a swift motion, he signaled his soldiers. The chamber exploded into chaos as energy blasts cut through the air. Klyr leaped into action, moving with lethal precision. Her blade flashed as she cut down attackers, her focus razor-sharp. Daniel scrambled for cover, ducking behind a console as he searched for a way to disrupt the resonator. "This isn't good," Daniel yelled over the din. "There are too many of them." "Stay low and keep moving," Klyr barked, deflecting an attack before delivering a brutal counterstrike. But as the fight dragged on, the sheer numbers began to overwhelm them. Virek's forces closed in from all sides, pushing Klyr and Daniel into a corner. Then Daniel noticed something, a loose panel on the resonator's control console, sparking with exposed wires. If he could reach it, maybe he could shut down the device. It was a desperate plan, but it was the only chance they had. "Klyr," he shouted, pointing to the console. "I need you to cover me." She glanced at him, then at the console. Understanding his intent instantly, she nodded. "I'll hold them off. Go." With a burst of speed, Klyr launched herself into the fray, drawing the soldiers' attention. Her strikes became a blur of movement, her precision and ferocity catching them off guard. It was the opening Daniel needed. He dashed toward the console, his hands working frantically to reroute the systems. The resonator's hum grew louder, the lights flickering erratically as he disrupted the power flow. Come on," Daniel muttered through gritted teeth, tearing out wires and bypassing circuits. But just as he was about to shut it down, a searing blast struck him from behind, sending him sprawling to the floor. Pain exploded through his body as he struggled to get up, but a shadow loomed over him. Virek stood above him, a cruel smirk on his face. "You really thought you could outsmart me, human? How pathetic." Klyr saw what was happening and fought to reach him, but more soldiers blocked her path, forcing her into a vicious melee. Virek grabbed Daniel by the collar, lifting him effortlessly with his enhanced strength. "You were so close," Virek sneered, "but you're just a tool. And now, you'll fulfill your purpose." With a flick of his wrist, Virek tossed Daniel onto the resonator platform. Energy tendrils sprang from the device, wrapping around Daniel's limbs and binding him in place. The machine roared to life, its dark power surging as it began to feed on Daniel's latent abilities. The chamber trembled, The walls, vibrating as a dimensional rift, slowly began to tear open. No, Klyr screamed, adrenaline flooding her system as she tore through her opponents. She couldn't let Virex succeed, not when the stakes were so high. But no matter how hard she fought, the gap between her and Daniel seemed to widen with every second. The resonator's energy intensified, and Daniel's mind was assaulted by a flood of vision cities bathed in golden light, beings of immense power, battles fought across time and space. The pain was excruciating, but beneath it all, a voice echoed faintly in his consciousness. You are the last of the line. The key to the forgotten gates. Through the haze of agony, Daniel focused on one thing clear. He could feel her determination, her fierce will pushing against the overwhelming force that sought to consume him. It anchored him, fueled his defiance. Klyr. I'm not. Giving up, he screamed, forcing himself to stay conscious. To Virex's shock, the resonator began to malfunction. Daniel's resistance disrupted its synchronization, causing it to falter. Sparks flew, the energy tendrils writhing erratically. Seeing the moment of weakness, Klyr broke free from her opponents and sprinted toward the platform. With a roar, she vaulted onto the platform, slicing through the energy restraints with her blade. As soon as Daniel was free, he reached out and grasped her hand. In that instant, a surge of energy passed between them, a profound connection formed through shared struggle, trust, and something deeper that neither fully understood. Klyr's mind filled with flashes of Daniel's memories, his fears, his hopes, the burdens he carried. In return, Daniel glimpsed Klyr's disciplined training, her doubts, and the weight of responsibility she bore. The bond was raw, unspoken, and forged in the crucible of combat. Let's end this, Klyr shouted, pulling Daniel to his feet. Together, they turned toward the resonator. Klyr's wrist device glowed as she activated an override sequence, while Daniel used the knowledge embedded in his bloodline to divert the energy flow. The machine's hum grew deafening, the lights blazing with chaotic intensity. Virex's triumph turned to horror as he realized what was happening. No, you fools, you'll destroy everything, he screamed, rushing at them. But it was too late. With one final command, Klyr and Daniel triggered the self-destruct sequence. A blinding light filled the chamber as the device imploded, collapsing the rift and unleashing a shockwave that hurled everyone to the ground. When the light faded, the chamber was in ruins. The resonator lay in smoldering pieces, its power shattered. Virex was unconscious, his plans ruined. Klyr and Daniel slowly rose, bruised and battered but alive. Daniel took a shaky breath. We did it. Klyr nodded, her expression somber. Yes, but at a cost. The walls around them began to crack and collapse. The facility was coming apart, unable to withstand the destruction they'd unleashed. There was no time to think, only to run. Move, Klyr ordered, grabbing Daniel's hand as they sprinted toward the exit. Debris rained down as they ran, the ground shuddering beneath their feet. They dodged falling pillars, leapt over gaping chasms, and narrowly avoided being crushed by collapsing ceilings. Just as the tunnel behind them gave way, they burst out into the open air, diving into the forest as the facility collapsed in on itself with a thunderous crash. They lay there in the dirt, gasping for breath as the dust settled. Above them, the night sky was clear, stars twinkling serenely in eerie contrast to the chaos they had just escaped. For a long moment, neither of them spoke, simply letting the tension ebb away. Finally, Daniel broke the silence with a dry chuckle. Well, that was a hell of a ride. Klyr laughed, a sound that surprised even her. You humans really do have a strange idea of fun. As they caught their breath, Klyr's expression grew serious. Daniel, this isn't over. Virex's faction won't stop. Others will come for you. You're still a target. I figured as much, Daniel said, sitting up, but I'm not running anymore. We need to take the fight to them, expose whatever they're planning. Klyr nodded, admiration in her gaze. You're right. But we'll need allies. I'll reach out to contacts within the Otherian resistance. We stand a better chance together. As they mapped out their next steps, an unspoken connection lingered between them, something deeper than camaraderie, forged by shared danger and mutual respect. Despite their differences, despite coming from entirely different worlds, they had formed a bond neither of them had expected. And it wasn't just about survival anymore.